Long ago, in the ancient land of Mesopotamia, people believed the world had two great realms. Above the earth was the world of the living, a place of sunlight, rivers, cities, and laughter. But deep beneath the ground, there was another kingdom, a darker one, a silent land where every human soul would travel after death. The ancient people called it the Underworld. And the ruler of this mysterious place was a powerful goddess named Ereshkigal. She was known as the Queen of the Underworld. But the strange thing about Ereshkigal's story is this: she had not always lived there. Long before she became Queen of the Dead, Ereshkigal once lived in the bright world above. She was a goddess like the others. She could walk under the sunlight, hear music in the halls of the gods, and watch the rivers shining across the earth. But one terrible day changed everything. Ancient stories say that a great dragon carried her away and brought her down into the depths of the underworld. When she arrived there, the gates of the Dark Kingdom closed behind her. And they did not easily open again. The land of the dead needed a ruler. Someone had to watch over the endless spirits arriving from the world above. So Ereshkigal remained. Years passed, then centuries. The world above continued to shine with celebration and laughter. But far below the earth, Ereshkigal ruled a kingdom of shadows, and she ruled it alone. High above the underworld, the other gods lived very differently. They gathered for great feasts. Music filled their halls, wine flowed across long tables, and stories were shared late into the night. But Ereshkigal was never there. Leaving the underworld was dangerous. If its queen abandoned the throne, the gates of the dead might open. The spirits of the dead could escape and wander into the world of the living. So Ereshkigal stayed where she was, watching, waiting, ruling a land where no one could return from. One day, the gods decided to hold a magnificent feast in heaven. Many powerful gods came together for the celebration. Among them was a fierce and unpredictable god named Nergal. Nergal was known as a god of war and destruction. He was strong, he was proud, and he was not always careful with his actions. The feast was joyful. Music played. Servants carried dishes of food from table to table. Wine was poured again and again. But as the celebration continued, the gods realized someone was missing: Ereshkigal. Of course, she could not leave the underworld to join them. So instead, she sent a messenger. The servant climbed out of the land of the dead and entered the bright hall of the gods. When the messenger arrived, the gods immediately stood to show respect for the queen of the underworld. All of them rose from their seats, but Nergal remained where he was. Perhaps he was distracted. Perhaps he simply did not think about it. But the messenger noticed, and when he returned to the underworld, he repeated the story to Ereshkigal. The queen listened quietly. For a moment, she said nothing. Then her expression slowly darkened. So, the god Nergal would not stand before the queen of the underworld. Her voice remained calm, but the air around her throne felt colder. "If he will not show respect in heaven," she said slowly, "then he will answer to me here." Her command was simple: send Nergal to the underworld. When the gods heard this message, they became uneasy. Refusing Ereshkigal was dangerous. If the queen of the underworld became angry enough, she could open the gates of the dead, and that was something no god wanted. So Nergal had little choice. he would have to travel down into the kingdom of shadows. Before he left, one of the wise gods spoke to him carefully. "The underworld is not like the world above," the god explained. "It has its own rules." He warned Nergal to be cautious when he reached the palace of Ereshkigal. Even something simple, a drink offered in kindness, or food placed before him at the table, could bind him to that dark land forever. Nergal listened carefully. Then he began the long journey downward. The path to the underworld passed through 7 great gates. Each gate opened slowly and closed again behind him. With every step, the air grew colder. The light slowly disappeared, until finally Nergal stood inside the Palace of the Dead. There, on a dark throne, sat Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld. She looked at him carefully, and for the first time, Nergal noticed something unexpected. Behind her strength, there was also loneliness. At first, their meeting was tense. Ereshkigal had called him there to answer for his disrespect. But as the days passed, their conversations slowly changed. They spoke about the worlds they ruled. They argued. Sometimes they even laughed. The cold silence of the underworld began to soften. Nergal started to see the queen differently. And Ereshkigal, who had ruled alone for centuries, began to feel something she had almost forgotten: companionship. Days turned into nights. The dark palace was no longer completely silent. But on the 7th day, Nergal suddenly remembered the warning he had received before entering the underworld. Fear returned to his mind. If he stayed too long, he might never leave. So while Ereshkigal slept, Nergal quietly slipped away. He ran through the dark halls. He passed through the gates. And at last, he escaped back into the world above. When Ereshkigal awoke, the palace felt empty again. For a moment, she sat in silence. Then the truth became clear. Nergal had left. The loneliness she had carried for centuries returned all at once, and this time, it hurt even more. Her sorrow slowly turned into anger. She sent another message to the gods above. "Send Nergal back to me," she commanded. "If you refuse, I will break open the gates of the underworld, and the dead will rise upon the earth." The gods did not dare ignore her, so Nergal was sent back again. This time, there was no running away. When he entered the palace once more, Ereshkigal stood waiting. Her anger was clear, but so was the pain in her eyes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nergal stepped forward. He reached out and embraced her. And in that moment, something changed. The anger slowly faded. The loneliness disappeared. And deep beneath the earth, in the silent kingdom of shadows, the queen of the underworld was no longer alone. From that day forward, Nergal remained beside her. Together they ruled the land of the dead, king and queen of the underworld. The ancient people of Mesopotamia believed the underworld was a place of darkness. But this story reminds us of something surprising. Even in the deepest darkness, even in the quiet land of the dead, connection can still exist. And sometimes, even love can be found there. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient mythology, many more mysterious stories are waiting to be discovered. Click the next video on your screen and continue the journey through ancient history. I will see you there.